and Mr. Peck, Shy Mr. Peck, is a lifelong friend, and all of these folks who I run into constantly. And
That's really nice that, you know, after all this time, you guys still have these warm memories. Do any of you guys have a particular memory of being on the set that day that just sticks out in your mind? Now, Linnea, we know yours already. But I mean, like, you know, a particular scene that is kind of stuck in your head forever. Brian, got anything?
Yeah. Well, the whole thing for me. What? Blue Jimmy. What? I'm confused. That'll be your moment. No, I've said many times I'm a huge, you know, horror geek. But I came to Monster Palooza last year because I saw online there was a thing called Monster and Palooza, and I went, well, I gotta go. I paid $20 and came. This year I got to get in for free. So I just, I love the stuff, and I would, you know, love the George Romero Living Dead movies and stuff. So the fact I got cast in a zombie movie, for me, just the whole experience was like, it was like pinch myself time for me. So honestly, but the key, I don't know why this is, because I love zombie movies, I love horror films. The same day when the zombies were breaking through the windows of the foyer of the mausoleum and in the chapel of the mausoleum, and I was whacking at them with a rubber sledgehammer, and somehow just the fact that there were zombies coming through a window and I was screaming and whacking them with a sledgehammer, to me was like an out-of-body experience, because it's like, that's what I watch on the screen and go, I want to, you know, some people want to do Shakespeare. I'm like, I want to hit zombies with a sledgehammer.
That's actually a good question for everybody who's watching here. You do with raising your hand. How many of you were horror movie fans before you appeared in this film? Oh, come on, Karen. You know. Don't even pretend you weren't a horror movie fan.
Oh, well.
Well.
I mean, you moved the headstones, but you left the bodies, didn't you?
I know, because I've heard you talk about the classic movies in documentaries and so forth.
Like Frankenstein meets the Space Monster.
Yeah, that's the one. Anyone else have a particular day that stands out in their mind during that shoot?
This wasn't a day, this was at night. We were shooting a sequence in the rain. And it was just a comment that my art director, Robert Allen, made. He was watching our special effects, floor effects people setting up all the rainbursts to do all the stuff. And Graham had hired a very inexpensive little group of guys to do this. And Robert's observation was, wow, this is like watching the Three Stooges build the pyramids.
Beverly, anything in particular stand out from the filming that you recall?
You should ask. No, I had a little rougher time than most. I had the staircase from the basement running up when I saw Tarman, and Dan played a little trick on me and pulled the step out and put in a fake one and said, okay, we're going to rehearse this. And I went running up the steps, and I fell through unexpectedly, and it hurt. I was bruised up and down, so that was a bit rough. And then another time when we were running through that freezing cold rain that was made for us, special, and I kept falling down. I had to fall face down in the mud. And Brian had to keep picking me up, Brian and Miguel. And Dan took his director's chair and he cooched it real close to that puddle. He goes, okay, let's do that again. And he just kept watching me go face down, and he was enjoying that so much.
Dan, I will say, I mean, I had a great time on the film, and I had a great relationship with Dan. Dan was very, very, very rough on Beverly, and we're not really sure why, but
I know why. I can explain it.
Okay.
Well, because he had me come to his house to read lines.
Oh.
And I was, I think, 18 at the time. I think he was 18. And there's a gun sitting on his coffee table. Jewel, back me on this. And there's a gun sitting on his, well, you just interviewed. There's a gun sitting on the coffee table, and he's got something on the television that I didn't feel was very appropriate. And, my son's here. And so he goes into the kitchen to answer the phone, and I'm panicking. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is what I heard about. Oh! And I'd already contract, so it was a done deal. And so as soon as he answers the phone in the kitchen, I'm looking at the gun, I'm looking at the TV, I'm going, I gotta get out of here. And I ran into his kitchen while I was on the phone, and I said, I forgot, I've got a meeting, I have to go. And I ran out of his house, and from then on, every time I saw him, I was just terrified. So I think that's why he had a good time with me. One way or the other, there was going to be a good time.
Because he didn't have a good time with you.
No, he did not. Oh, let's just keep that straight here.
I got another raise your hand question for you guys. Because I want to get to the audience in a moment. How many of you still watch the film from time to time? I know you do, Stab. You do too, Doc? Yeah.
It's good.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
I just let my son see it, and he turned 17, so.
Earlier than that might be a mistake, because there are parts of that movie that are genuinely scary. You know, I mean, it's funny, yes, but it's also pretty terrifying.
And naked.
Yeah, I think you too.
Also, by the way, there are a lot of long scenes in it, uninterrupted, mostly because Dan was working so fast that he really had to shoot a lot of it in masters. And I knew, you know, when I came into it, there were so many of the people were young and really had not done very much, and I was a little nervous. And then I started to work with Tommy, and we had that long opening of talking, you know, talking about where we were. And I'm looking and I'm working with this young guy, I think it was Tommy's first picture, and he was there. I mean, it was such a special kind of relationship that he and I had. That's finished. The movie's over. Sure, I love you, honey, but the movie's over. But it was just a terrific experience, and then I began to realize that everybody was having that same thing with all the people they were working closely with, and I realized that we had a very good picture.
Very cool. All right, we've got about 20 more minutes, and so I would like to open up the questions to the audience. Anyone have any questions for any member of our panel here? Yeah, right there.
I have a story to tell, because I'm Bill's wife, and they mentioned about the movie being a little bit too scary, you know. Well, our son, I think, well, he was born while they were making the movie, and I guess he was about 2, and Bill had a copy of the movie, and he took it to his mom's house, and all the brothers and everybody was there, and Andy was there, and we let Andy see everything from the time, earliest time, you know, we just let him see anything normally. And the tar man came on, and he screamed and ran out of the room and said, that's it, I can't take it anymore. Wow. But that was the only movie he ever reacted to like that.
Any other questions? Or stories? Yeah.
Yeah, a question. One of the things that's really unique about it is that it incorporates the punk aesthetic from that period in LA and does it in a way that's really authentic and stands up now. I mean, other movies that tried to kind of bring that in looked phony at the time and look worse now, and that one really works and makes it very unique. Do you people address how that came in and how that unfolded?
I think it was the actors.
I mean, you think it's the actors?
I think it was the actors who brought that authenticity.
I've been asked at a few of these conventions, because I was Scuzz and I had the mohawk and the trench coat and all that kind of stuff, and I've been asked at a couple of conventions, and I've taken it as a really huge compliment. People assumed that I was kind of punk rocker-ish at the time, and I was total like USC drama nerd. I mean, I was wearing like those bad designer jeans and like Ralph Lauren polo shirts, and I was like Mr. Preppy guy. I was nothing like that, and so. But to me, I mean, I was always attracted to, as an actor, to playing parts that were as different than me as possible. So for me, it was just I wanted to be authentic. So I kind of did some research on it as to, you know, the look and all that.
Look at your coat.
Well, that was interesting because the wardrobe department actually kept dressing, when we were doing wardrobe tests, actually kept dressing me fairly similar to Mark Venturini, who played Suicide, which was, he had the leather and the chains, and they kept putting me in different versions of the leather, and I just kind of looked like Suicide's mini-me. And Dan was kind of dissatisfied, and I was like, well, I want to look different, and I kind of latched onto the idea, because the more British punk thing were the mods, with the trench coats and that kind of look, and I said, well, what about something like that? And Dan was like, yeah, that would be really cool. So I actually went to a thrift store and bought that trench coat. I actually bought a lot of my costume myself.
Those are all your buttons too, right?
And all the buttons. Yeah, the buttons were mine. I made a bunch of buttons. They're nerd buttons if you look at them close. Like Star Wars buttons and Alfred Hitchcock. I played Snoopy twice in Erica Van Kelly rap, so there's Snoopy on it. It's actually really geeky if you look at the buttons.
They went like that with your hair and you had to go around with your mohawk for months after. Every day at the supermarket.
It was weird having a mohawk. I mean, I would not have chosen to have a mohawk had they not paid me, but I wasn't a particularly judgmental person to begin with, but I learned to be very, very non-judgmental about people's appearance. Because I really, 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 really got treated like crap because I had a mohawk. It was really weird. Because offset, I wasn't all dolled up or wearing punk stuff, but just the fact that I had a bleached mohawk, people were so rude to me. I had people literally say really shitty stuff to me because I had a mohawk.
Well, they'd seen your performance.
Well,
Got a question over here. Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Pathmark.
Go ahead.
I just had a quick question. I heard the audio commentary and was wondering why you opted for the blonde mohawk instead of the green.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was to me?
Yes.
Why I opted for...
Blonde as opposed to green.
Oh, blonde mohawk as opposed to green. Yeah, in the script, it literally says Scuzz sports like a lime green mohawk. And even the day we went and got our haircuts, I went, Mark Venturini went and got his haircut, Don got his hair bleached blonde. This crazy guy named Attila, who at the time was like the punk rock hair guy. And he was actually a rock, he had an album out and stuff. He was a unique guy. He had the world's largest mohawk with the flags of every nation glued on the tips. You know what's so weird is his shop. I drove by it recently. It's on Doheny in Santa Monica. It's literally a Fantastic Sam's. Which I thought was so funny that this guy with the coolest, hippest punk haircutting salon in all of the land is now a Fantastic Sam's. Anyway.
Yeah, my old studio back then is now a marijuana dispensary.
Oh, is it? Yeah, like that's any different than when you were there. No, but anyway, so it was going to be dyed green, and so they bleached it blonde, because they couldn't dye my brown hair green, so they bleached it blonde to make it green. And once it was blonde, well, for the same reason you said that the punk rock stuff sort of holds up today, I thought green was so on the nose. It wasn't inaccurate. I just thought, green is like that one step too far, where it's like, I'm in a movie and I'm a punk rocker, I have green hair. And I just thought it was one step too far. And I just thought the bleach was more real. And so right then and there I said to Dan, I think this is better than the green. He said, oh, what a green one. Try this.
Yeah, he's done. Bill, did you have a question?
Yeah, are there any plans for it to be released on Blu-ray anytime soon?
Call your congressman.
Well, they would probably use one. You guys already did one.
No.
We've done two different versions of the commentaries. I wouldn't be surprised if it got released on Blu-ray because the first DVD of Return of the Living Dead was MGM's biggest selling DVD of the year.
They didn't do all that well.
I want to touch on something that Brian said, but Dan said, yeah, go whatever you want, because that was my experience. Been working on the movie for 2 weeks, and I had gone home, and someone had said no to me, and it was like, no, because my experience for the last 2 weeks was working with Jimmy and working with the whole cast. It was always a collaboration, which what I think really kind of pulled the movie together, and everyone was paying for everything. So it was really odd for me someone in my family to say no when the past 2 weeks, everything was just, we talked about it, and lines, and we did all this other stuff. It was really phenomenal experience. My mom.
I have a question actually. Is John Philbin still there?
We don't know what happened to John Philpott. I think he went for a rum and coke and never came back.
I hope he brings back enough for everybody.
He's surfing in the pool.
I saw another question right there.
My question is for Tom and Jim. I love you guys in the movie, but one thing I always wondered was what the impetus was for you to return for part 2 and play sort of similar characters.
Japanese. The Japanese. They wanted us back in the movie. They wanted us in part 2. only knew that because I worked at Lormar Productions, and the international department came up to me and said the Japanese really want to get that. That was it. Because everyone died. I mean, we were nuked, and we were toast.
It made no sense.
It made no sense.
So Frank, I've got a story about Dan. Dan is scripts like Alien, Blue Thunder are famous for the paranoia. And that comes from Dan's personal neurosis. When we were making the film, Dan and I would drive to set each day together. And I was in the process of buying a house. Well, Dan had just purchased the house. Dan doesn't do anything without doing an enormous amount of research first. And he did a huge amount of research in homes, and he decided that there was only one kind of house that was suitable to purchase, and that was the Spanish adobe. But it just had one flaw, and that's the walls were not machine gun proof. So Dan bought a Spanish adobe in Santa Monica, took out the walls, put steel plates in, so that the walls in his home were machine gun proof.
And then plywood on top of that, because when I was there, the plywood was going, that 3/4 inch plywood, and it wasn't for structural, I thought it was for sheer wall because it was in Santa Monica, it was worried about the earthquake and stuff like that. But he had 3/4 inch plywood put on nothing on the outside. It was all done on the inside and then replastered to match what it was before.
And then he took me on a tour of the house, and at one point he sort of stood there proudly and said, anywhere in this home, I'm within 3 feet of a loaded weapon. And my first thought was, well, that doesn't make me feel very
And you know
secure at all.
what? He was worried about earthquakes because his bed, he had a canopy bed with like slats on it and stuff in case he was sleeping and things would come down crashing out. Now, did he have his windows, were they bulletproof? Interesting. I know the house.
It's featured in Architectural Digest. It's really
We have,
And Soldier Fortune magazine.
let's take the question in the back there.
This is for any of the actors. Your characters are all so just perfectly colored and perfectly drawn in the film. Clue especially seems so calm. He's in the film. How much of any of your characters, you don't have to all answer, but if anyone wants to, how much of your character is you, and how much is just what you created for the film?
I'm afraid to ask, Clue.
Thank you for that question. Next. The way you phrased the question, I'm quite well aware that you know the answer, but I will answer it in my vernacular. I think that for actors there are 3 heads, and you have to give allegiance to all of them. One is the magic word, one is the director, and one is the actor's art. I think you have to respect yourself as the actor and not totally give that up to the words, which is our blood, of course, or the director, who is our leader. So from that answer, I hope you deduce that a lot of my work, their work, in film, especially when we don't get to rehearse a great deal, has to come from your own psyche, your own soul, your own heart, your own mind. And you play Clue, you play James, you play you, with the flavoring of the word and the director, the editor, and so forth and so on. Look, I'm not saying that you have to be that kind of immodest prig to say, I know more than Dan, I know more than the director, I know more than the film editor. That's not it. We have an art, we actors, and we practice it. We respect it, we believe in it, or we wouldn't be in this town, you see? Thank you for the question.
I just want to say, in answer to that question, I hadn't thought about it very much, but when the picture was released, I said to myself, you know, I'm going to kind of play a blue-collar man, and so my cousin called me from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and he said, Jesus Christ, said it was like watching your father up there. And I never thought of it until then I realized that it was. I was actually, without trying to, I was playing my father.
Jewel, how much were you like Casey?
Pardon?
What?
You think I was going to let you get away without answering a single question?
No, well, I like to party. Okay, a lot.
All right, we got time for just maybe two more.
That's it? You're done talking? Oh, for the love of God.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just had a question. It seems like with this question for you all, with Jim and with Clue working on this, how did you all get any work done? Because we could tell with these two were such the group cut-ups. It's it seems like
No, I have fond memories of Jim and I getting makeup and sitting in a chair for, in the mornings, and the stories, oh my God. Things and places you don't want to know they're going. I mean, just go on. It's great memories.
You can't
And
see
I was
them here?
24.
Can you see them here?
Some of them, but I think we're pressed for time.
Yeah, we're just about done. I got one more way in the back there. Standing. Yeah.
Thank you. Lou, Joe Pilato from Day of the Dead. Big fan from Dance War. You have been such an incredible craftsman in my life. As an actor, we just lost Robert. That's another guy. Could you, for anybody, directors or editors or screenwriters or actors, talk a little bit about your training, if you want to, sir? And thank you for your presence and your body of work.
Well, I think that they've all sort of really covered about like where they come from and what their training is, include, of course, just gave that wonderful speech. It's just a matter of time. That's all. I'll tell you what I'm going to do is just going to ask any of you here. Do you have a favorite line from the movie? And I mean this movie, Clue. And it doesn't have to be your own line.
Two lines come to mind when you say that. One is more paramedics, of course, which kind of is the star line that defines our picture. But the other one is the one that Karen said, and I've always respected his work forever. I saw Karen the other night at the New Bev. He played in an audition scene for David Lynch. He was as good as I've ever seen an American actor on screen. He was brilliant. But I think the one line that he said, that's a good question, Bert. Not a bad question, Bert. Those two are my favorite lines.
And an awful lot, a lot of the good lines that came in were just happened in the excitement of the moment. Not a bad question, Bert, was also somehow to fill in a moment. And with Tommy, we were so high, the excitement, that we were just riffing. Things like, watch your tongue if you like this job, boy, after he's been covered with slime. But a lot of those things just
came out.
absolutely happened. because we were so free and easy with each other. You know, you could say anything to another actor and they would come back with something. So it was just, and Dan was smart enough to let it go, to let us ride it.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning earlier about the collaboration. It's phenomenal.
Beverly, say one of your favorite lines.
So
Say it on microphones.
Oh, fudge. Oh, fudge. Oh, fudge. But you know what's a good line too? The one that Mark Venturini said about the costume. Because I can't remember the line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
it's
is a fucking costume. This is way old.
that's like
Respect for the dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don's rabbit weasels.
yeah.
Rabbit weasels.
Subtitles. What was that?
Rabid weasels.
It's a movie line about rabbit weasels.
Rabbit weasels.
It's one of those moments
I
that
got a
good.
favorite line that I can't remember. Suicide slapping Linnea away from his crotch.
Have some respect for
And he
the
said
dead.
something like, I mean, he fucking respected.
Wonderful.
He was wonderful, you know. I've been around the block and I've done a couple of things. You work with some people once in a while and hello.
All that.
Talk about why we killed Bobby Franks, because we were in love. No, that's another movie. No, what the heck was it? But yeah, that line was wonderful, whatever. Oh no, I was going to say that this guy, Mark, he was, you could see that he was so thrilled to be working. This might have been his first film. And the guy was a joy, and I said, boy, this guy is really a happy camper on this film. And he had a joy about it. And the thing is, you put that dialogue in that person, and the joy is just abounding. And I think just about every line he had just bounced out of him.
That actor's dead now, but I must tell you that when I saw him work on that set, and Karen and Calfer and I were on the set, I said, well, we're the three big shits here. I saw that guy work, and I found out from a good friend of his, after he had died, he had put weeks and weeks and weeks of research into this kind of character, and his wardrobe and his words. This was his big break. It meant the world to him, Don. The whole world, you're right. And I wanted to bring that up, but I didn't want to make it too morbid. You know, James is here, and I thought that... Oh, I'm sorry. But thank you for bringing it up, Don.
I think the line you're trying to think of is, I'm making a statement here.
Well, you know,
I'm making a statement. Oh, Jesus.
well, the movie is obviously filled with
Don's
Brian.
running Weekend at Bernie's right now.
I think we're just about out of time. I mean, I think that, you know, for the actor that you were just referring to, I mean, this picture is certainly, you know, a way to honor him and Dan and, you know, the few that have lost, have you know, gone away since that movie. The fact that you guys are all here is still wonderful, and the movie's terrific. It's lasted this long. It's going to last a lot longer. Thanks, guys, for being here. Let's have a big hand for the